Are you currently under the weather and feeling bad? Feeling emotionally and mentally drained? If so, you'll want to watch this video because we want to avoid a huge pitfall that a lot of people fall into when they're under the weather and not feeling themselves. Hey there, friends. Glad to be back today. And today I want to talk about what happens often when we're under the weather and we might not even be aware of it. And we might have had it happen to us recently when we did feel under the weather, but we didn't put two and two together and realize that that's why that happened, right? So when we're sick, right, we don't have the energy that we usually have. We don't have that mental clarity and ability that we normally have. Like we're agile, we're mentally agile, we're physically agile. When we're sick, though, we're in what we call survival mode, right? And in survival mode, what do? Okay, when we're in survival mode, a lot of times we do what? We go back into old patterns and programming without even knowing it. Because we're just too busy trying to stay alive. We're too busy trying to stay as good as we can, you know? And when we're sick, we have the headaches, the fever, the body aches, the pain, the back aches, all that stuff's going on. And anytime, even if you haven't been sick and you've been injured, for example, isn't it hard to have that mental and emotional clarity that we need to deal with difficult situations? And so when we are under the weather, we kind of revert into this old programming. A lot of times when we're dealing, for example, with someone that's challenging, someone that's judgmental, or someone that seems to be entitled. When we're dealing with certain folks in our life, right, it can be really challenging because we don't have that same clarity that we've gained recently on calming ourselves down when we're in a conversation with them. A good example is when you're dealing with somebody that's constantly asking you questions and you feel as though you have to defend yourself, right? And in that defense, it's like rapid fire questions. You're constantly, I did this, I did that. This is why I did this is why I did that. And a lot of us, we've overcome the over-explaining, right? But when we're not feeling ourselves and we're under the weather, we can go back into that old programming of completely overly explaining, trying to defend ourselves, falling into that old program, giving that person what they want and leaving us feeling bad. Right? Leaving us feeling vanquished, leaving us feeling sad or angry with the way that we responded and allowed that person to control us, right? Another good example that I want to talk about is gray rocking, right? A lot of us have used this technique and learned this technique to deal with challenging people in our life, people that don't deserve to know all the stuff that's happening. They don't deserve to know all the things that are going on in our life because they've either shown us that they can't be trusted, they've shown us that they're going to use that information against us or gaslight or manipulate us with it. And so it's hard, though, right, when we're under the weather and you're not feeling good, and you're mentally drained, and you just want to go to bed, it's hard to remember, oh my gosh, I need to use my gray rocking techniques, right? It's challenging. Another thing about being under the weather is we can get easily agitated. And I know that I've been under the weather before, and it's hard not to get agitated, right? You're not feeling good. You're not happy about not feeling good. You want to go back to the way life was, right? You want to get over this and move on. And so you're already agitated with the fact that you're sick. And now when you're dealing with somebody that might be judgmental or challenging or entitled, now you're even more agitated, right? And it can be hard to hold back on some of the things you say. And sometimes we can say things in the heat of the matter, especially when we're under the weather, that we end up feeling guilt for, that we end up feeling shame for. And these aren't the feelings that we want, especially when we're sick. We don't need to have excess of negativity when we're trying to get better. Okay, so let's think about what's the solution to this situation. What can we do to stop, at least in the meantime, while we're getting better and recuperating and taking care of ourselves? What can we do to limit our challenging, judgmental, or entitled conversations with these people? How can we limit that until we get well? And what I figured out is, one, we don't want to be answering the phone when we're sick. Okay, and especially when we see somebody that's calling and leaving a voicemail that we necessarily don't want to talk to, or we know is going to create problems or make us feel bad to some degree, or try to get us to over-explain, or they might be judgmental that we're even sick, right, and wondering where we got it, how did we get it, and all those great questions that you don't really feel like answering. And that, I think that a timely text of, I'm under the weather, I can't talk right now, I'm going to bed, is perfect. You might not even need a text. Sometimes you might be dealing with somebody that's going to constantly message you or reach out. And that's when you just say, hey, I'm feeling really sick. I'm under the weather. I'm going to get back to you as I'm feeling better. Okay? Text and emails are great because you're not on the phone. They're not catching you on the phone. If you do have to get on a phone call, you need to make it 2 minutes long. It needs to be very short. You need to be really aware of defending yourself. You need to be aware of their judgment. And if you're feeling that way, you need to get off the phone immediately and say, I am very much sick. I'm very much under the weather. I cannot talk right now. I will call you back when I can. I know that some of you say, well, some of these challenging, judgmental, entitled people live in my household. Ashley, what do I do now? And I get that. And the good thing is that hopefully you're not in the same bed with this challenging, judgmental, entitled person, and so that you can have some space away from them. And so we want to limit that exposure. And when you're getting well, and I hate to use this, but when we are sick and we're under the weather, people don't want to get sick, right? They don't want to be under the weather. And so one of the best things is I don't want to get you sick. Okay, I'm going back into my room, or I'm going back into the guest room, or I'm doing whatever. I don't want to get you sick. Let's discuss this when I'm feeling better. And I think this is very helpful. And you can kind of play on the fact that other people don't want to be sick and that you don't want to be in their face talking to them while you're completely under the weather at this moment. I think that a lot of times this will work for you because remember, we have that tendency of falling into those old patterns, those old programming, because it's so hard just to keep ourselves kind of just leveled when we are not feeling our best, right? And so hopefully this video will help you. Please share it with anybody that you know is going through the situation. I mean, we all get sick at some point, right? We all get something. We all get under the weather. We all have to deal with this, but we don't want to make it even more challenging because our number one responsibility is for us to get better, right? We don't want to have guilt and shame on top of trying to get better. And then we also want to deal with these people on the right time, on our own time. And then also we want to be able to use those new techniques that we're using, that gray rock and getting that emotional distance, realizing that we don't want to overly defend ourselves, find it when someone's gaslighting and manipulating us, be able to see it for what it is, right? And usually we can do that when we're not clouding our judgment with not feeling well. Please give us a like on this video if you've liked the content that you've seen today. And also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We really appreciate subscribers because it makes us feel good and we know we're doing the right thing and we're creating content that appeals to you. And in the comment section below, let me know. I mean, have you been sick recently under the weather and you had to deal with a challenging person? How did that go? I mean, it can be hard to remember all the stuff that we have to remember when we're dealing with someone like that. And I've also found sometimes when we are agitated because we're sick, we might say that wrong thing. And the guilt that we feel about that, especially if we're an empathic person or we care about others, can impact our healing ability, right? And that's what's so important. Don't forget to live your true life.